Welcome to Mainstreet Minds with your host, Amish Munshi. This is where industry leaders and seasoned pros share their secrets to success beyond limits. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Mainstreet Minds. Today we have Shawn Knight with us. He has taken special time off from his work to help us learn more about himself and educate us on what makes someone successful in our industry. So without any further delay, let me open up the floor. Shawn, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, Amish, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's very exciting. What can I say? It's kind of funny to even say this, but I've almost been doing this for 30 years now. I've always had a knack for computers, started at a really, really young age. Kind of took a few side trips along the way. Heavy management. I was into sales for a while, but always with the forethought of wanting to be in technology. So with that, my gosh, I started probably very humble beginnings for a nonprofit on a help desk. Kind of learning the ropes, getting into technology, always wanting to do software development, and ended up doing a lot of just management. Building out networks, managing help desk people, setting up a lot of developers with laptops and gear and servers, and finally just kind of saw the writing on the wall. And basically got into software development full time, and that's all I've really been doing since. Did a lot of consulting, done some freelancing, and worked for Wells Fargo for 13 years.
Wow.
Which I felt like I was settling down by doing that, and I paid the price of ageism, and ended up leaving Wells Fargo and deciding to try to start another freelancing career. Started an LLC, and it wasn't gaining much traction, and decided it was time to go back to work. And last couple of years, I did the government contracting thing.
Oh, nice.
Kind of a entirely different world with obviously the new administration. Things don't look really good in that regard right now. And I ended up just leaving and deciding to try to find a small company again. There's a benefit to working for small companies. And there's a little consulting firm out of Tennessee that I just joined a month ago, and I'm in the throes of a greenfield blue sky project, and I'm enjoying it thus far.
Sweet. And you did mention something very important, like saying it's important to have a long stable career with one company, but at the same time realizing it may be time to do something new, right? Sometimes we just get stuck, and we think we need a change, but we may not be able to make that change. What was the decision making factor for you?
A lot. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it, the thing that I've always found myself to be very successful at, yes, I do know technology. I've got a knack for computers. Those things are kind of come naturally, but I've gotten really good at just reinventing myself. So not getting stuck in that mentality of I am this or I'm that, or I can only be this. And I just found that with Wells Fargo, it was more meetings than actual getting work done. And I'm very big on customer experience, right? Ultimately, whatever I'm doing is going to affect someone down the road. And that's not what it was about. And I went from, a lot of different teams in Wells Fargo, anything from kind of on the capital market side of it, to supporting internal systems, and eventually just said it was time to move on, and thought I could recreate, some of my successes in the past. I did freelance for about a year, back in the early 2000s, and that, I didn't make a lot of money, but I really enjoyed the work, and just I wasn't having that with Wells Fargo anymore. It was a very toxic environment, and again, like I mentioned ageism a minute ago, I found very quickly that they were actually trying to get rid of people over 40. And so, it's fine, if that's the way it is, let me go try to find something else. So that's kind of the catalyst, is just really probably being burnt out and not being able to do what I'm very passionate about, which is developing, good software.
Yeah, yeah. So, when did you decide to do more of full stack development? Like, how did you transition into that?
That's a good question. So, the different teams that I was on within the bank. I mean, when I first was brought into the bank, I was actually a consultant. And I'd worked for, companies like Family Dollar and Duke Energy, which is a local energy company, and then went to work for Wells Fargo, really to teach people SharePoint, to build a SharePoint team, as a consultant. And then eventually they offered to hire me. So I was like, yeah, maybe it's time for me to settle down. So even then, I wouldn't even call that quite full stack development. I started getting into the full stack parts probably the second to last position that I held. And that was really supporting a 20-year-old application. Definitely not full stack. But moving into that world, I was able to actually build out a team, looking at true full stack development using stuff like Mongo and Blazor on the front end. And so, probably later in my career, I became what I would consider to be, full stack, or at least having an opportunity to be full stack.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a big push in the industry the last several years. So the last couple of positions at the USDA had kind of a full stack flavor, although it was a lot of low code, no code, dynamics, power apps. But this current position is true full stack. I mean, most of my days, I've got Visual Studio Code up in one window, and I've got Visual Studio like 2022 in the other, and I'm doing back end code and turning around to see what the reaction is in the front end. So I would consider myself at this point in time a true full stack developer.
Yeah, and how does it feel to be able to control the full stack, right? Like earlier, there were days when we would have to just install a database and just focus on one thing, and somebody else would go ahead and deploy a complete different database, and it may work, it may not work, it may be optimized differently, there could be indexing issues, but having control over everything, does that simplify your job?
It really does, actually. In fact, I do remember those days at Wells Fargo where you had a dedicated DBA that did not work in your group. So we're all supposed to be doing agile, right? But you don't have people on your team. It was always kind of throw it over the fence.
Yeah.
You could do your local development, but then again, you're pulling all the schema information together, handing off to someone else to implement. My days now are using things like Fluent Migrator. So I literally can go in and actually build out the tables, add columns and things right there in the code. Nowadays, we use Docker.
Okay.
So I don't have to have a server. It used to be I'd have to go put a request in for a server and wait, a couple of months. Now I can spin it right up. And then, the other benefit to that, not only having that environment to develop in locally, but then when we do deploy it, and that's another thing, right? A lot of developers do their own DevOps nowadays. It's actually quite nice. I can just push things out to a branch, and then it's out in Azure. So you can do some really rapid development, and the control is very nice. To be able to sit there and actually be able to control end to end and do all the testing and everything.
Yeah,
so it's a great world.
Yeah, I remember one of my days when I had put in a request for some server infrastructures. I managed to get through my immigration and my green card in faster than we could a set of servers. And anybody will tell you getting through the green card process is not quick.
Yeah.
And I was I could quit my current job, go down, get a job with the service provider, go down to the data center. It took them 4 months to plug a network cable in the server. I was I could change my jobs, get certified, get assigned to that team, plug that cable, and come back in 4 months. It was crazy.
Yeah, it is. And it amazes me how many organizations are still in that world.
Yeah.
I mean, Wells Fargo is a great example. When I left, this was March 2023. They were still thinking about using the cloud, but they wanted a private cloud.
Yeah.
They're still in the process of provisioning. Yes, they're virtual servers, but
Yeah.
still in the process of provisioning them. And there's 5 different groups that have to actually each
Yeah.
do their piece, right? One does the OS, one does the
Yeah.
apps.
Yeah.
So just you think about the amount of money that is wasted
Yeah.
in that regard.
Yeah. And how does the system scale up? Like, do you have to do something different for the cloud? Like, yeah, like if the demand increases for the product that you've developed, like, do you have to do something differently?
That's a good question. Depending on how you structure things, I could say at least for this particular project, we're
Mm-hmm.
not using things like Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
But Kubernetes with Docker is a very powerful solution
Mm-hmm.
where you can easily have Kubernetes actually scale up and spin up multiple instances. This is a pretty small app for basically a insurance claims company,
Sure.
so they're not all too worried about scalability. They
Yeah.
do have some third-party integrations they're kind of concerned about, but I have been in those scenarios where you do have to think about the app itself and how you write it.
Mm-hmm.
Is the code compatible with having multiple instances? Concurrency, and there's lots of things
Yeah.
to look at there. But fortunately, I'm not having to deal with that right now.
Cool. Sounds
Yeah.
great. So, uh, how easy was it for you to like go from like doing a little more of administrative and implementation of SharePoint to going to like development? I've not seen a lot of people make that transition, and I appreciate how you managed to like make that big transition. What was involved in that phase?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. SharePoint's always been kind of an interesting product. I mean, I have I used SharePoint early on, back before they actually had like MOS 2007. Back when I first joined the bank, the best you could really do, there was some API stuff you could do, but a lot of what I did was just built on JavaScript,
Yeah.
using things like Knockout, and then actually storing the JavaScript in SharePoint, and then
Okay.
just manipulating the DOM.
Yeah.
More recently, the API is a bit more expanded. You can do things with CSOM. You can, obviously create any kind of infrastructure inside of SharePoint. But what I found is a lot of people still aren't using it what it was intended to be used for. They use it for document storage,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy to me, and that's fine, but it's not really what it was meant to do. But it depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, a lot of people will build apps.
Mm-hmm.
2 contracts ago, we were actually using React
Mm-hmm.
to actually, build apps, SPA, single page applications
Mm-hmm.
on top of SharePoint. Again, using SharePoint as a document library, and
Yeah.
then turning off all the other features. So I'm kind of surprised that Microsoft's not invested in a true content management system.
Yeah,
You
makes
know,
sense. So
yeah.
I think so it was more of development related work on top of SharePoint, right? Like it was yeah, so it was a little easier transition. It wasn't like implementation of SharePoint. It was more of uh development on top of it.
Yeah, and I've done some of the implementation pieces. I mean, actually standing up SharePoint, but with SharePoint Online now,
Yeah.
obviously, you can provision a SharePoint site as an app,
Yeah.
very, very quickly. You don't have to worry about, actually provisioning a database and getting servers, and so
Yeah.
it's a lot better. But yeah, in some ways, I don't miss SharePoint. It could be, a bit of a bear, and again, just seeing all that functionality go to waste.
Yeah.
People just don't leverage it as it
Yeah.
should be leveraged.
Yeah. I think it was like just the way the easiest thing that was being used is for the file management and like use something else in the front, and that's what it was limited to, and
Yeah,
it didn't get to its full potential.
that's true. That's true.
So currently, like what within the full stack, what technologies are you using? Like, are you using which frameworks are you using?
Yeah, I mean, right. What I've seen here lately, and what I've actually been actively using, a lot of Angular. That
Mm-hmm.
seems to be very popular stack.
Yep.
And I just got through that last contract I was on. gosh, they were on version 7 of Angular, and I think we're up to like version 19. So I was actually taking that app through all of the upgrades, which turned out to be fairly successful. And then, of course, you always have React.
Yeah.
And a lot of TypeScript. I mean, I'm still seeing a lot of C# developers, come over to the front end using React with TypeScript. The current project I'm on is using React, but with a sprinkling of Next, JS in there, which is supposed to be like the latest and greatest built on top of React.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much those are the two top. I mean, so I've had some experience with Blazor. That's like Microsoft's answer to those things, maybe a replacement for Silverlight. But I've not had an opportunity to actually do a full-blown implementation. So I'm kind of hoping when this thing wraps up, and the next project might be pure Microsoft all the way across.
Yeah, makes sense. And that's something very unique. Sometimes I see a developer being like an Angular developer or a React developer, and then like just having it's like having the fight saying, right, do you want Notepad or Notepad plus plus or WordPad? Like there is always like one preference. There's no like each of the tools have their own benefits, but it's good to have skill set on all of them.
Yeah. I think I've been doing this long enough to where I've kind of become code agnostic. I mean, yes, my passion is in C#, object-oriented development.
Yeah.
But I find it very easy to pick up just about any technology. And I've played around a little bit with Python, a little bit with PHP.
Yeah.
You get in on the AI side of the world, like generative AI, you're definitely going to have to learn those kind of languages.
Yeah.
But my preference, honestly, is just give me Visual Studio 2022, some C# code. Let me do some API development, and I'll be happy.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. So, what are some of the recommendations you would have for somebody entering full stack development? Where should they begin?
It's a good question. So in this current climate, you're going to see a lot of articles and posts written on, development is dead. AI is going to take over development. Even the company I work for. I mean, obviously, you've got to invest in AI of some sort.
Yeah.
You've probably heard of the buzzwords, vibe coding. We just had a demo done with Devin. Which is another thing it's another, AI flavor that can go out and do kind of menial tasks. That's great, but the problem that I've seen with the industry, and I've got pretty good experience with AI. I mean, I've gotten very close to actually doing some fine tuning and training. I'm pointing over here. I invested in a high-end gaming machine, so I actually can do generative AI type work. And, obviously we know what hallucinations are. We know what chat GPT can do and what it can't do.
Yeah.
I run a lot of local models. It's the training set. And I've been doing this for a very long time, and there are not a lot of good developers out there. I don't mean to be offensive to anybody in the industry, but a lot of people will go get trained. They'll go to college. They'll get a comp sci degree. They'll pick up a little Java, in college. But I think it takes a very special mind to be truly a good developer, especially if you're talking full stack. So if you think about all of the AI, all the models out there that have been trained, they're trained on some pretty bad code.
Yeah.
I mean, go to Copilot and ask it to code something. And gosh, if you have a hallucination in the code, it's a little crazy. So I've got some concerns there. But for those who truly have a passion for wanting to learn development, I'm self-taught. I have no college. Again, my first experience with a computer was my father handing me this very large brick with an LCD screen and a bunch of buttons. It was a inventory control device. Yeah. And he gave it to me and said, "Hey, can you figure out how to program this? I don't know how to do this." And I figured it out. And the next thing you know, he bought me a Tiras 80 Model 3, a Trash 80. And I learned to reverse engineer BASIC.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the best way to learn is just hands on. I mean, yes, there is a plethora of ways to get, trained out there. There's Pluralsight, there's Udemy, there's Masterclass. But yeah, really, I'd say, hit the books, so to speak, and just experiment. I experiment all of the time, and I'm constantly trying to refine what I do. And honestly, if we use AI appropriately, you could have it help you learn to code. Just trust but verify.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can't just take it, and we still need to know what it's giving us.
Yeah, that's kind of where my big concern is let's just say that in 5 years from now, let's just say 50% of all the development jobs go away because of AI. Who is going to be watching what AI does?
Yeah.
And if you've got inexperienced people, watching what AI is doing, and they're the ones doing the validations, we're in really big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. So the code may be developed by AI, the QA script might be developed by AI, and that thing goes in production, and then something happens.
Yeah.
It's going to be too late to find out what to do. And if at that stage, if the developer doesn't know what's going on, God bless that company.
Oh yeah. I see it all the time. I mean, you've got humans doing coding that are on a team and they don't communicate well.
Yeah.
And where they expect AI to do it better, it's disconcerting. But what can you do? It's the world we're in.
Yeah. It should be used as one more resource to do something rather than saying, hey, replace it.
Yes, I agree completely. Yep. You give someone a hammer and they can do a lot of good with a hammer. And they can do a lot of bad with a hammer.
Yeah, give it to my 3-year-old and I'll be like running and saving all the screens and devices.
That's it.
Give it to my 6-year-old and should be constructing something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. So apart from that, like what I know there is AI is the next big thing. Apart from AI, are you seeing any other new trends right now in development?
Not really. It's kind of this same old, same old. I mean, even this application I'm working on now is not particularly groundbreaking. I know for a while, blockchain was this next big thing, Web 3.0, and that just seemed to fizzle. I mean, aside from probably, the general intelligence type of AI things that we're seeing, I'm just really waiting for singularity. I think that's the next big thing that's going to happen. But as far as development goes, I mean, not a lot out there, and nothing really exciting. Which is kind of a shame. If anything, some of the things I've been wanting to get into, and I've kicked the tires on is like game development. That to me that's kind of exciting and glamorous.
You have the new machine sitting right there next to you.
Yeah. In fact, at one point I was actually using and I'll get all of these things I would love to do, but we have day jobs, right? We have to pay the bills. One of the things that I've been striving to do is I started to build a interactive fiction game using AI, but not necessarily for the AI to be, actively participating in the game, but actually training it on the game, and then actually having two instances actually talk to one another and actually develop the game, and then actually spit all that out into a format that I could actually pull into, things like Twine to make an interactive game. But again, pipe dreams. I've got the talent, I've got the skill set. I just don't have the time to do things like that. But if you think about it in that regard, I mean, AI, aside from all of the fun things you can do with it, you can get it to write blog posts and all that good stuff. I mean, there's a lot of power in it. And to me, I kind of see it a little bit differently probably than others, because to me, it's like another development tool. I mean, yes, you can have it write code. You could tell the AI to pretend it's a TRS-80 Model 3. and it can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so depending on how you use it, I do a lot of image generation. So I do a lot of like artwork and stuff, and it's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And
What tools? Which
oh,
do you use?
yeah. So there's a thing I found. It's open source. It's called Focus.
Okay.
And it actually has like I think 3 O's in it, so it's like FOOOCUS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you can download all kinds of open source models from Hugging Face, and you can. It's I I've done a couple of deep fakes that I will not release because they are nearly indistinguishable from reality.
Yeah.
But usually I do a lot of I've actually got other things I do on the side. I have a music project.
Okay.
And so all of the artwork I do for music, I use Focus to create. It used to be the days we'd get Adobe Photoshop out and maybe take some photos or use Illustrator.
I know. Yeah.
I don't have to do that anymore. I can, construct a really nice prompt.
Yeah.
A lot of times I like to let the AI decide, so give it a very limited prompt and see what it comes up with.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll give it a title to one of my songs, and it comes up with just something that is just mind blowing. So in some ways it kind of reminds me of those early days when I was a young man with that Trash 80 and reverse engineering games and stuff. There's a little bit of that excitement I get when you could take a tool like that. And get these really good results. So, but that's really about it. I can't think of anything else that's particularly exciting to me.
Yeah. Do you like to play existing games as well, or do you mainly develop new ones?
I used to be a really big gamer. I used to be heavy into World of Warcraft. I'll tell a quick story. So, way back when the .NET framework first came out, before we had the version that we call .NET nowadays, .NET Core, .NET Nuke was released, and that was how you probably remember this, how Microsoft's kind of showcasing what .NET framework could do. Yeah. Well, I immediately took to it and started building modules in .NET Nuke, and I had this really slick image module that you could have on a .NET Nuke website. Well, a person contacted, I was doing freelance work, then a person contacted me and said, hey, I want to buy, several copies of this image. I'm like, okay, great, but what are you doing with it? Well, this person was a huge World of Warcraft player, ran several guilds. He was actually creating .NET Nuke sites for guilds so they could actually have their guild members show, all that World of Warcraft stuff. And so we got kind of built up a rapport, and he was like, been wanting to create a video capture app so we can record gameplay. Could you do that for me? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let me take a shot at it. So, that's like C development, C++, which not my forte, but I got in, started, finding ways to do it. And he's like, I got to send you a copy of the game just so when you're recording the game, you actually get some gameplay. Yeah. Next thing you know, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm playing World of Warcraft. I'm not actually developing any software. Yeah. And I was hooked. And then from there, I think I was playing just about any MMORPG that you could find. Yeah. And did that up until probably, about 10 years ago. And I just got bored with doing games. And so now I'm on kind of the development side. But again, it's just finding the time. I get going and then I get busy with working extra hours, and so it's difficult. Yeah. So what apart from the development and the passion for doing some more game development, what do you do in your free time? Apart from computers and outside? So I started a music project back in the early 2000s. And, I got to where I was, I bought a bunch of gear and I'm not a musician. I mean, I got a little bit of a musical mind. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with writing code, and decided a couple of years ago to revive that. And so now I've got just all kinds of instruments. I have a little Mini Akai keyboard. I just bought this. This
Yeah.
is a MIDI woodwind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to produce music, and I've released a couple of albums. I'm actually on a couple of shows in the UK. In fact, this weekend I'm on a show on Sunday called Synthscape, and Monday I'm on Indie Jukebox. So I got this little music thing on the side that I'm trying to build up. I don't think it'll pay the bills, but I enjoy it. It's lots of
Never know.
fun.
Never know unless we try.
That's exactly it. And that's the other thing too, right? You've got to experiment. You've got to try things.
Yeah.
And so that might be my other passion
Nice.
is doing music. So yeah, that's my other thing. But again, it's like programming. I've got Logic Pro up, and I've got all my tracks, and it's very similar. It's just a different language, right? Language of music.
Yeah, and which is universal.
Yes, it is.
Most people understand that much more easier than the language.
Yeah, trying to talk to my girlfriend about coding, and she smiles, and she listens, but a lot of times she's just like, "Look, I really don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah,
but thank you for sharing.
yeah, exactly. So, where do you see, in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see technology? What are some of the things that might be exciting, saying, hey, I wish something like this is available in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I guess kind of going back to the whole the generative AI and on the coding front. I mean, in some ways, there are days where I am I don't dread going to work, but there's a lot of things you have to do as a developer that are not fun.
Yeah.
And I would like to see, the models get better, less hallucinations, to the point where I would actually feel comfortable turning some of that work over.
Yeah.
But more like let's just say you had developers working for you. I would treat it like that. So I kind of see, that might be something that's a little exciting. It's kind of a mixed bag for me. Part of me, I've got those concerns of what the outcomes might be. But if I had that control, I'd be okay with it. But that's kind of the only thing I really see. I mean, I don't think the world's going to be taken over by robots.
Yeah.
I see that stuff all the time. I think we're quite a ways away from that. But I don't really see. I mean, there are some interesting things being done, like in the medical fields, with a lot of virtual nurses and things like that. That's kind of an interesting thing. There's some areas I wish there'd be more time invested in. In 2023, when I first started really getting into what we commonly now call AI, although artificial intelligence has been around for a while, as you know, I was doing a lot of things with voice synthesis, and you just don't see a lot of that. Right now. It kind of died down. The other area that I'd like to see, that I'd be interested in getting involved in, might be video creation. Of course, Chat GPT, OpenAI just released Sora, which is kind of interesting, but it can only do like 30-second videos. Kind of when you do music, part of what you want to do is you want to express that music visually. And that's a long process. And so that would be an area that I would love to get into, is actually taking music and having AI actually listen to it and then create videos from it. So in other words, kind of taking the language of music and having the AI interpret it. So that might be areas that if there were, and maybe there is, I've not researched it, but those would be things that I would get excited about and want to be involved in.
Yeah, it would make you happy and in a happy place if like this would exist, right? Sweet.
And it might be the art side of my brain. That's what I see a lot of. I mean, and I know there's a lot of great applications for using generative AI, but to me, it just seems safer if we kind of keep it on the entertainment side of things. And I know that Hollywood is there's a lot of debate going on, with actors and actresses and production companies, about the use of AI. I know there's a bunch of stuff in recently with the Oscars and what movies had AI in them. But to me, that's a pretty safe bet. Let AI entertain us. And I think we'll be okay.
I agree. One of the things that worries me with AI is if it starts to stereotype people, and we'll end up having like 5 or 6 different types of people in the whole world. I just hope the diversity, or kind of the differences, still exist. Right? I might have a different mood in the morning versus the evening. In the morning, I might want something different. I just hope AI is able to keep up with the variety and depth a human being cannot. I'm hoping AI is able to. I think that will be a step in the right direction.
I agree completely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen this across several different models that I've used. Mm-hmm. AI is very biased. It's kind of funny. I'll just quickly say this. So. One of the big themes in my music is monks. So the band is called Saints in Unison. So a lot of times with my artwork, I'll portray a monk in a different situation. Well, the AI feels that all monks are bald. And they always wear orange robes. And that's funny to me. But again, it kind of goes back to that training set, right? So most of the models have been trained on a very biased set. I've got a couple of songs that I've done that may lean more towards the hip hop. And guess what I get? I mean, I get a very biased, a portrayal of characters, and without even asking. If I put in a rapper, I usually will get, but a particular, it's kind of crazy to me. It's just very, very biased.
At that stage, what do you do? Do you just give it a different prompt? Do you ask it to just modify it? What do you do in that situation?
Well, yeah, a lot of times I'll try to go back and see if I can get it to not give me, a biased answer. But a lot of times I'll just kind of live with it. Because again, I a lot of times I want the AI. Sounds strange. I want the AI to express itself, and that's how it sees the world. I mean, I know again it's been trained, but it's very similar to how a lot of humans see the world, right? Yeah, depending on where you've lived, where you were born, if you've traveled a lot. I mean, I've had a pretty diverse background. I've lived all over the U.S., and so I have a little bit of a different view of what diversity is. So it is kind of interesting to see what you get. But I agree with you totally. I do hope that, as these models evolve and expand, that they do take into account, humans are of all different shapes and sizes and colors, and they speak different languages. They feel a certain way in the morning. They may feel differently in the evening.
Exactly. I was just speaking with somebody who specializes in self-driving vehicles, and I was like, please include my mood in the driving. 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting late to drop kids in the school. I want to drive fast. Self-driving cars should be able to understand that on a Sunday afternoon. Don't fly over the speed breaker. Just take it slow. I am in no rush.
That's right.
I just hope it gets to that stage where it's able to understand the human being a lot more than what it's doing right now.
Yes, I agree completely. Yeah, take those things into account, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I know. We are almost at the end of the episode, but wanted to give you a chance, saying. What are some of the other things that you would recommend somebody starting in a full stack software development career? What should they be looking at so they can have a successful career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the most important things is understanding the relationship of things, right? So when we're writing software, we really need to think about what are we representing, right? So think about the representation in software. What are your end goals? And try to keep that in the forefront and try to get past this idea of it's just code, because to me, ultimately, someone is going to use your software or be affected by your software in some regard. And just keep that in mind. Keep in mind, kind of back to, if you go to a restaurant and you're served like a bad meal, you want to ask the chef, would you eat this? Think about those things. It's just the word, just be aware of ultimately, where things are going to be delivered and how they're going to be delivered. And just when you write that software, aside from whatever language you're writing it in, it's just keep that in mind. And I think if you have that basic understanding, I think actually it makes the software development process easier. I could go and I could talk hours about best practices and things like that. But there's a lot of good resources out there, to understand what is the best way to write software aside from what is the best language. Because you've got a lot of camps that think Java is better than C# and vice versa. But really just understand that relationship between, things in the real world and how they're represented. And I think if you can get that and have that understanding, I think the rest will come, fairly easy.
Yeah. Sounds perfect. So before I conclude, what's the best person? What's an ideal customer that you would like to work for? Will it be music? Will it be gaming? Will it be development of something related? What would be an ideal, perfect thing that will bridge your hobbies along with the work?
Yeah, honestly, people are hard to please. Ultimately, if you're a consultant and you're trying to please a customer, today's a great example. We were just getting shredded in a meeting. And it's just two people just being difficult to be difficult. I think if anything, I really need to take the time to like you said, take my hobbies and bridge that gap. And what I see myself doing is finishing this game, using AI to assist me to create the game content. I would love to score, actually score the game. And just put it out there. Because I guess with me, that's the beautiful thing about art, whether it's, visual or if it's audio, is, I want to please myself, right? A lot of the music I do, I like what I do. I listen to my music. And I'm hard to please. So I kind of figure if it sounds good to me, I could put it out there and hopefully others will like it. So that's why I really
publish it somewhere. Do you publish?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've got 2 albums I released last year. They're all the major streaming platforms. I've got an album dropping in 10 more days on the 31st. It's a bit of an addiction, I'll admit. I have another album. I've got almost 14 songs ready for it that I'm going to probably drop on the 20th of April. But yeah, so
what is it called? How do we find it?
So if you look for Saints in Unison, if you looked it up like on Spotify or Apple Music, in fact, you could probably put Saints in Unison in Google and you're going to find my website and everything. So so that's really, I've got the day job. I'm very passionate about it. I love what I do. But I've got the stuff I do on the side that, I hope it'll take off at some point. Maybe one day I'll have a chance to spend time putting together a game, get that released out there and just see what people think, Yeah,
absolutely. And let me know when that is available. I would love to try it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep in touch with you. Absolutely. And let you know.
Sounds great. So thanks for coming on the show today. It was great having you and learning a lot about what is possible with tech in today's world, along with applications of tech into music, AI, and gaming. So thanks for coming.
You're welcome. I was very happy to meet with you and talk about a lot of fun stuff.
Sure. Thanks. Have a good
Thanks.
Friday.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Mainstreet Minds. Want to share your journey with our audience? Head over to mainstreetmindspodcast.com/guest to apply.